Welcome to another Medtech Business Academy. My name is Tom Hickey, and I'm going to be your host for this episode. With me is Mike Sperduti and Scott Alexander, two of our regular contributors to this podcast. So, gentlemen, we're thrilled to have you here today. We have, I think, struck a real interesting conversation in and around what does sales need from marketing? So with that, we've got a sales expert and a marketing expert, both Mike and Scott, in their respective areas. So Scott, why don't we start with you? Maybe you can kind of give an overview about some of the marketing flow and how that leads to creating some sales collateral that the sales teams can use. Can you help us out with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll maybe set the stage on what we've seen over the past, call it decade, 15 years, and then what we see as marketing's role in supporting the sales team, and then sort of conversely, what the sales team, what the marketing team needs from the sales team to be effective. So, if we rewind back 15 years ago, it's 2009. I guess the iPhone is still relatively new back then, and I happened to be launching an insulin pump for Medtronic. And this is a big product, $500 million in annual revenue. So, kind of a flagship product for the division. And my launch plan from a marketing guy standpoint was a couple of brochures, update the website, build some training materials. And if we think about where we were, back then when dinosaurs roamed the earth, marketing was really fundamentally about making sure that we had brochures that could go in the hands of the sales reps, because all of the relationships between a medical device company and a hospital system was at the intersection of that salesperson. If we think about where we are today, marketing's really had to step up, really sort of had to grow as a function in our industry, because reps don't have access like they used to. There's more people involved in the decision-making process, whether it's you get your clinical people, but then you have finance, you have operations, maybe IT. So you have more people, and it's just gotten beyond the scale of what one individual sales professional can handle. And so what we think about it today, the role that marketing needs to have is, number one, we need to be educating our target audiences as to why, number one, you should be paying attention to our product or service. Number two, why we're different or better, and why people know that you should know about us. And then ultimately, how we can create educated prospective buyers to then hand over to our sales teammates to actually be able to go and close the deal. So it's been a big evolution and sort of maturing of what marketing needs to be able to do in the medical device industry.
Yeah, that's helpful. And then Mike, over to you. With that, you work with a lot of different campaigns, a lot of different initiatives with your sales team and outreach into various verticals. What are some of the disconnects that you see? Can you provide us any insights in terms of what might be useful or what's maybe missing today that you would like to have on your wish list if you could get those fulfilled?
So I think, when we talk about leads and we talk about opportunities, I think one of the issues that we have is that we kind of look at a lead and we just say, oh, it's a lead. And what does that mean? So some people think a lead is, I go to a trade show and somebody drops a card in a fishbowl, right? And I'm going to call that person. And why did they drop the card in the fishbowl? We have no idea. We're starting from ground zero with that particular lead, right? So that's one type of lead. Then you have another lead where you can buy a list of prospects who are decision makers, and that's a type of lead. And then you have leads that you get from marketing that would be from trade shows from webinars or social media and things of that nature. So I think the number one thing we need to do and what we need from marketing is just clarity about why we're getting this information and how to execute on that information in the best manner, right? Because I'm clearly going to treat somebody who's in the market, who has a problem that they're aware of, and marketing has raised that flag and done a good job of identifying the problem, identifying that we may have a solution and then hooking us up together, that's a much more qualified lead than somebody who is just, I'm interested in learning about this technology. So I think having some classification of lead and direction of lead would be very helpful for the sales organization. Scott, what do you think about that?
I think you've got two kinds of buyers, right? If we want to think about what the market looks like, one group is what we call the active seekers. So this is language that we use at Gyrus all the time. Like this is our vernacular, but you've got active seekers. They have a problem and they're looking for a solution. So they're in the market already. That's maybe, who knows, 3%, 5% of the market, right? Certain markets, a lot more direct to consumer stuff tends to be much higher as a sort of percentage of the market. But that's active seekers are looking to buy. What's it going to take, Mike, for me to be able to sign a contract today? Those are the ones you really love, and they're great. The other group is going to be 95 to 97% of your market, which is what we call the engageable afflicted. So they're engageable, right? I will talk to you, and I have the problem. They have the problem, but they're not actively looking for the solution. So, or they're not looking to you for the solution. So they may not even know that you exist. So when we think about the quality of leads that are getting handed over, you're absolutely right. We need to be able to say, this person, here's Johnny the lead. How interested are they? Like, how much do they know about it? Are they just there to kick a tire? Are they really there to dive deep on, how they can bring it into the system? Absolutely. That's one of the things that we need to be able to do. And as a marketing guy, allegedly, we tend to send leads in from the fishbowl. It's like we have a quota of number of leads we have to generate. And so whatever it takes, if it's a name, it's got an email, maybe a phone number, it counts as a lead. That's kind of how the system's been set up. And that is a terrible way to build that kind of relationship. You never want to do that. You want to be able to say, these people have been nurtured and now they're ready for the conversation.
I think also, Tom, the other thing from sales that is very frustrating, or it's an unbelievable opportunity, depending upon the information that we're receiving, is does the account have the fundamental criteria for us to help with the solution? Because they may say they have a problem, but a lot of times our solutions can only help a certain size of customer, meaning they have to meet a certain number of patients or a certain number of lab tests that they need to do. And so meanwhile, we're all excited because Scott hands me over a lead and says they're interested in learning about, let's call it pharmacy automation services. And meanwhile, my product or my technology can help somebody who does 500 prescriptions a month or more. And meanwhile, Scott gives me a lead of somebody who they have a need for automation, but they only do 100 prescriptions a month. And so here we are, we're all excited and we got the lead. And now, we go down the dance, we meet the person, we get on a plane. And now we find out they don't even meet the criteria in which we can help. So I think having that type of information through marketing is critical for success.
And there's so much there that you can pull. Sorry, Tom, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I'll just say quickly, there is so much there that you can pull. Like, have you guys seen MedScout or Acuity MD? What's the other one? Alpha Sophia is the other one. All these companies basically pull procedural data. So you can get in and you can literally see John Smith, the prospect we just got in, does 300 ventral hernias a year, and we have a hernia mesh. Heck yeah, let's go after that. Or he does 2 a year. What are we gonna do? Like, there's so much education, and that's just one piece of the whole puzzle that you can put together to say, here, Mike, here's what you need to know. Here's the doctor. Here's the cases that he's doing, whatever, and tee the team up for success. And the reason why you want to do that is the biggest complaint about marketing from sales is what? The leads are bad, right? And the truth of the matter is, as a marketing guy, I erode my trust or my team's trust in me every time I send over an unqualified lead that I could have fixed, right? So that's why this stuff is really important.
So Scott, how do you, from a marketing standpoint, because you mentioned back when the dinosaurs were roaming the earth, and we made a brochure and maybe an ad for a trade magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Now the buyers are so diverse, meaning they're all over the place, right? How do you find them, right? Because not only are they in different aspects of the buying cycle, and there's someplace in the hospital that we can't even get to. Mm-hmm. And then what platform are they on? So how do you guys kind of sort that out, right? In that qualification process to maybe get to that right person? Is there some insight there that you can share, best practices?
Yeah, absolutely. So any given product or service in our space, medical devices, sort of medical software, whatever, there's a limited number of people that can say yes. It's 25,000 people. That's 30,000 cardiologists. It is a definable audience of people. And so, right, this is our secret sauce. So I hope there's no marketing people listening to this, but essentially you want to figure out not, hey, we sell to cardiologists, but you want to know it's John Smith, it's Sally Jones, it's Robbie Patel, it's Pete Wilson. We want to know who these people are, names, emails, phone numbers, NPI numbers, whatever the case might be. So that once you do that, then you know these are the people that I have to influence. I've got 25,000 people in my market. What am I going to do? And so to your question, Tom, about where are they? That's going to vary a little bit, but we know people are on social media, right? And it, by the way, it's not just LinkedIn. I will little nugget for our listeners. LinkedIn is the worst lead generation platform of all of the systems out there. But it's not just LinkedIn. They're on Twitter potentially. They're on Facebook, right? Doctors are people too, right? And so we want to think about that. We want to think about email. We want to think about in-person, but it's about creating that surround sound, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we're trying to change the way they see the world. So if we have a device for AFib, we're marketing to cardiologists. What we want to do at the end of the day, forgetting the tools and the tactics and that sort of thing, what we want to do is we want to convince all 30,000 cardiologists that the only way to treat AFib in active, folks under the age of 60 is with our procedure. You want them to say, that's of course the way that you do it. And the frequency of touch, the value of your touches, right? The way you can kind of influence them towards that is what, frankly, Mike, makes your job really easy, where they're like, well, of course I'm going to have the XYZ widget because everybody who has this has to have the XYZ widget. That's what marketing does well, in my opinion. When it's running well, that's what's happening.
So what's fascinating that you said, which I would like you to expand upon, is LinkedIn is not the place to be fishing for leads.
Oh, it sucks. It's the worst.
Sucks.
Yeah.
And this, because I know just from my perspective, as a CEO and people wanting to get my attention, I'm spammed every single day. LinkedIn has become the new spam center. So that's how I feel about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So, but I would imagine that everybody's got that feeling, whether they're a doctor or so-and-so. So can you comment on LinkedIn and really where number one, why LinkedIn is so bad? And number two, where are the other opportunities that are gold right now?
Yeah. LinkedIn is so bad. I don't know why. It just is. It really comes down to the fact that you don't get conversion like you do on a platform like, say, Facebook, right? So again, the other nugget is Facebook is really good at generating leads for medical device companies. You just have to do it right. And so what I think is happening is when people are on LinkedIn, they're there for a purpose, right? And so what you don't tend to see as much on a platform like LinkedIn is engagement with paid advertising campaigns, where hey, come to my landing page and then click, and leave your name. We don't tend to see that works very well on LinkedIn. What does work better on LinkedIn is this idea of boosted organic posts. So if you get on, you're going to see all these people that and boosts of hey, here's what's happening, that sort of thing. You can get good reach and eyeballs on LinkedIn, but it's just maybe the nature in which people use the platform that they're not conversion ready, if you want to think about it that way. Transition that over to a platform like Facebook. Facebook, people will click on ads, people will download white papers, they will schedule appointments for everything, including literally cardiothoracic surgeons for for devices used in cardiac surgery. So if somebody's listening, like, well, won't work for my thing, like, well, maybe, but we've got cardiac surgeons. We have literally neurosurgeons who are downloading white papers about ways to do neurosurgery off of this platform. And I think it's because they have more time to do it. And so as a result, they're going to sit there, they're going to download a white paper, they may read it, they may schedule an appointment, show interest, that sort of thing on that platform because they have more time. It's not a day, it's not when they're in the grind of like the day, it's at 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock, whatever time, before you go to bed, you're looking at your high school friends and that sort of thing. And then you happen across something that's relevant to you as a person, as a professional, people engage. So
what do you think about LinkedIn as an awareness tool? We talked about this before we started the podcast. And that is, marketing really has two functions, right? You want to create brand awareness and position yourself so that way when people are in the market, that they're already familiar with you.
Yep.
So, and that authority, thought leadership position in your space.
Yep.
Is LinkedIn, using video and that kind of stuff, is that valuable still on LinkedIn, or is that even? Would you recommend people moving more to Facebook for that purpose?
I think it's better for that purpose. I think the idea of somebody getting on and sharing something on platform, so we have a video that starts to play, right, sharing knowledge or whatever to build brand, I think that's very spot on for what LinkedIn is good at. Where LinkedIn as a platform fails is getting somebody to take an action off of LinkedIn. So, okay, click this link, now go to this website and fill out a form. That doesn't tend to happen as much on LinkedIn. And that, by the way, that's not just me, right? And sort of what we found in our firm. I've got 100 other marketing agencies that I talk with, and so like peer groups across the board. That's it. Everybody says it. Like nobody sees great success with big paid advertising campaigns on LinkedIn.
Interesting. And my last question is that relative to this social stuff, is there tracking now where if somebody watches a video on LinkedIn and they click on something on Facebook, and is that all stuff are you having visibility with some sort of overall monitoring tool, watching people's activity and saying, they always say, the internet's watching us, right? Are we at a point where they know, well, heck, Mike looked at my video, Mike did go on Twitter and did respond to something relative to what, my technology is all about. Are we at that level yet?
Sort of. So the way that what happens is, if you've heard about pixels, like the idea of like a pixel. So if Mike gets on and watches my video, the pixel can pick him up. So I can see that I can't see that Mike did, but I can see that it was done. But the platform of LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever knows that it's Mike. And so there's this whole concept of retargeting, which is basically to say, Mike did something on Facebook, he clicked on a link, right? So therefore, he's probably interested. So I can basically put him into a new group of people. I don't know who they are. I can't identify them, that sort of thing. But he's in this bucket of people that I'm retargeting to do new ad campaigns to. So yeah, we do that all day long. To be able to feed that data into a CRM, like a HubSpot or a Salesforce or whatever, you have to have Mike identify himself and fill out a form or do something where we can be like, it's specifically Mike Sperduti doing that. But even if you don't know it, you can still sort of influence the marketing campaigns.
So Scott, I'd like to kind of back up and maybe get a little granular, and without giving away the secret sauce, if I'm an innovator, if I'm a startup or I'm a international company coming to the United States, what's the expectation? I mean, I'm thinking you can't just go right to Facebook and have people start downloading your form. I'm thinking you've got to warm them up a little bit. So is that something that might be measured in months or amount of contacts. So, what would the expectation be for somebody to then really start to getting some, what you would call, validated in leads that it could be turned over to sales?
Yeah, good question. I think if we started from scratch, we have a product. Let's assume that we have, like here's the playbook. We're a startup. We're going to go do something in revenue cycle management. You pick it, right? Pharmacy automation. Kind of first steps, we need to have a way to show our value in the market. So one of the things, Mike, I mentioned I was this before we started on the call. I don't believe in brand awareness campaigns. Like in general, they don't work. Like they're immeasurable is maybe the right way to say it. Like they're not driving value because I can't measure if they're driving value or not. So we generally have two types of campaigns, really three types. We have one is thought leadership. I am an expert in your field. I will share some knowledge with you that you need to have, and you're going to recognize me as an expert in the field. Like that's what a thought leadership campaign is about. And Tom, to the question you just asked, like we need to think about how we can stand up thought leadership campaigns because we have to establish our brand and we have to establish our position as a thought leader. And thought leadership is, from our definition is, we want the prospects thinking, when I have problem X, I go to person Y for solution Z. So when I have a problem with pharmacy automation, I go to Mike Sperduti to fix my problem. Like that's what we need to be thinking about. So you got thought leadership. The other thing is this idea of like, let's get somebody ready for a sales call. So, people are going to be in the market for pharmacy automation and they're going to want to touch, they're going to want to talk to Mike or team and that sort of thing. One of the biggest sins that I see marketing people do is they get somebody who's downloading a white paper, attending a webinar, whatever the case might be. And we say, they're a lead, go get them, Mike. And what happens is 95% of those people don't want to have a conversation with Mike. They just wanted to understand the latest technology for pharmacy automation. And so this is a simple fix. Here's what we do. In our, because you got to fill out a form to get that, whatever the thing is. Just literally add a form, add a field that says, would you like someone from the organization to reach out to you? Or something along those lines. Like, are you ready for a sales conversation? Mm-hmm. If someone says yes, go get them. That's a sales. That's a sales ready lead. If someone says no, you're not going to send them over to Mike. What you're going to do is you're going to nurture them with your HubSpot or your Pardot or whatever platform you're using to get them until the point they say, yes, I'm ready to talk to somebody. And that's when you serve them up.
Mm-hmm. So Scott, I have a CEO question. All right. I want to engage you or I want to engage a marketing firm. Okay.
Sure. Yep.
And I know I have to do marketing. And so I know I have to select somebody and I make a choice, right? Based on like somebody like yourself, obviously a good choice. You know it from both sides. You've sat in the buyer chair. Now you're on the other side. You've done a lot of work for a lot of different people. You have the chops, the expertise. And I buy, hey, Scott looks like I'm going to bet on Scott. And my budget is whatever we agree on. How long do I give Scott? How much rope do I give Scott? How much time do I give Scott to show me he's going to produce ROI? What should be my expectation when I hire a firm like yours?
Yeah. You should give me 3-4 years, maybe 5, So here's what I would say. If we've got a pretty heavy digital focus, which most companies do because of access, I would say from the date of kickoff, and I was kind of walk through a timeline of what we typically see. From the date of kickoff, it takes about 30 to 45 days to get a campaign up from scratch. Like we just have a new client as of today. We're going to have campaigns for them up in probably 45 days. It takes about, depending upon what we're doing, 3 to 4 months, so 90 to 120 days to really kind of get the campaigns going. And I can get into why, but it just takes the platforms some time to understand it. By about 6 months after you're live, you should start to see separation from the noise. So do we start to see quality leads? Do we start to, do the salespeople say they're good or not? We start to see that. The biggest driver for you as a CEO in terms of that how long do you give the marketing team is really going to come down to what's the sales cycle. So if you've got a 2-call close, right, that sales cycle is really, really quick. We should be seeing ROI, for getting leads in, we should start to see revenue, at least the beginning parts of it, about 6 months, maybe 9 months. But you've got interim checks along the way of like, are people downloading the white papers? Are they engaging with my emails? Like, are we seeing activity beyond just impressions and clicks, right? So if I was sitting in your seat and I hired a marketing firm and they're talking about like, hey, we have these ads, we got 10,000 impressions. My reaction would be, I don't care. What does that actually get me? And then the next level is like, well, we got, of the 10,000 impressions, we got 652 clicks. I don't care. Like, what does it actually get me? And that's what, if you can't get your marketing team coming back to walking through the whole thing of impressions to clicks to form fills to closes, like if they're not talking that language, they're not the right fit.
Yeah, I mean, I want return on investment, right? And so my question is, what is let's say an average, I would say in the device space, you're typically looking at 120 to 180 days sales cycle.
Yep.
So it's a longer sales cycle, especially when you're talking about capital equipment. Disposables are a lot easier, that you have some issue. But let's just talk about capital equipment, and let's talk about a longer sales cycle. Is a year a reasonable amount of time to give somebody? Is that too long? Is that too short?
I think a year is a reasonable time, if not a little bit on the long side. I think like if you get 6 months in, you should definitely have clear indicators that these campaigns are going well. And more importantly, that like the team that's working on them understands when things don't go well, what to do about it.
I would almost like to see it as a measure of pipeline, right? So if I let's say I invest $10,000 a month with you, okay? Yep. And what type of pipeline should be generated and when, right, off of that? Because if I'm spending $10,000 a month with you and you're giving me back $100,000 in pipeline opportunity and I close 10 or 20% of those, right, we're going to have a good relationship, even if it takes 120 days down to do that, right? Yeah, exactly. So what should be what is the ratio between dollar in to pipeline, right? Because then it's up to my sales organization to close.
And before you answer that, I'd actually like to add one little caveat, because you mentioned thought leadership, right? So what do you need from a CEO like Mike, to build that thought leadership? There's usually something of value that's provided. So what do you need from a CEO like Mike to then start to build that ROI as well?
Yeah, I mean, what you need is to have a unique position of insight. Like, and this is kind of high level, but you need someone in the organization who can say, this is how what we're doing is different than everybody else. This is how you should think about, problem X, Y, or Z, and therefore what you should do about it. That's what maybe it's a CEO, maybe it's a chief medical officer, maybe it's somebody else in the organization, but you need to be successful in terms of building thought leadership and sort of position in people's minds. You need to be able to convince them they need to do it differently. And so in a good firm, like I have a whole team of like medical writers and graphic designers and all that kind of jazz. So a good organization should be able to take a subject matter expert's insights and turn that into something without them having to be the ones fingers on keyboards. But you need to have a unique position. Mike, I know you're super excited about getting a number on like $10,000 in. How much do you come out with? I think 6 to 10. And we have some X is a reasonable number.
Yeah.
The biggest factors that I see in terms of that ROI is the size of the opportunities. So if you've got, because the marketing effort is really not that different between marketing a $1,000 widget or $100,000 or $1 million pharmacy automation system. Like, it's really not that different. And so the biggest driver of your ROI, you're like marketing ROI is what we call what you just described, is when I get a lead, how valuable is that lead? So that's the biggest driver there.
So, gentlemen, this 30 minutes has gone flying by. I can't believe it. So, Mike, to start wrapping up, any thoughts or questions to help us wrap up here?
So I would just say that I really enjoy learning from Scott about social media, the drivers that make it happen. I would just say my thought is, to my fellow CEOs and to VPs of sales and marketing, I would really take a look at your trade show budgets right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that trade shows are very valuable for networking, for learning. I think you need to be there, but I really believe, and I've recommended this in my own companies, we've done this as well as in our consulting businesses in taking clients and repurposing a lot of maybe shrinking the booth down a little bit, or maybe not doing those cocktail parties or sending less people, and putting more money into social and to things that you can drive constant awareness, build that thought leadership, as well as drive pipeline that you're just not seeing at a trade shows. And so my recommendation would be move more, start switching that budget and moving more into social, because I've benefited a great deal with social media, and I'm a big believer that we need to be pumping more into that.
Yeah, that's really good. And then I got an observation, and then Scott, I'll toss it over to you for your final thoughts. But my observation with this, working with a lot of innovators and new product launches, is create a partnership with that marketing department as well. They're not just those folks in that other wing of the building that do, their little thing. The more input they get from the sales and to them helps them do the job better, right? So make sure there's a good collaboration. And with that, Scott, let me toss it over to you for any final thoughts you have from your end on this. Really, really great question today.
Yeah, this has been fun. Thank you for letting me kind of talk about all this stuff. I think just, Mike, on your point with trade shows, you're dead on. I mean, we see that across the board. Trade show attendance is down. The value of opportunities coming out of trade shows is down. And people ask me why I recommend a lot of digital stuff. And it really comes down to the fact that I can get in front of your target audience 24/7. 365 or 363 days because they're at the conference for 2 days. But the rest of the time, that's how you do it. So email, social, that sort of thing. I think just a couple of parting thoughts. Parting thought to, and I got 3 of them. So one is, if you're the CEO of a company, one of the best things you can do is you need to align what sales and marketing is doing in terms of what the benefits are. So if you find that you're setting up your comp structure, for example, to reward marketing or lead generation, you are always going to be disappointed. Everybody's going to hate everybody. It's going to be like cats and dogs fighting. So what you need to think about is we need to have 2 things. One is we need to have this pipeline piece of how big is the opportunity that has been created or influenced by marketing, right? And so that's one thing. And that's really downstream, and that will align your sales and marketing teams together really well. The other thing that you need to think about is how are we creating our position to be the thought leaders in the space? That's a longer term play, but it makes the sales easier next month, next year, 2 years down the road, so that your overall cost of acquisition of a new customer will go down the more you are seen as the expert in the field. That's just sort of laws of physics kind of stuff that I'm talking about. So if you're the CEO, you got to think about what are the incentives and how am I aligning the marketing team to the near-term revenue generation as well as long-term thought leadership creation, right? So that's one thing that we got to do. If you're a sales guy, right, sales leader, VP of sales, chief revenue officer, whatever, you need to make sure that your sales team and your marketing team are talking collaboratively about what's working and what isn't working. Because again, to the extent that one doesn't know what the other one is looking for or is seeing, it's kind of, you know what you're going to get. And then the final thing to sort of the heads of marketing is marketing is now a full contact sport. We didn't get a chance to get into this, but one of the things that has changed dramatically over the past several years is the fact that buyers want to learn 80% of what it takes to buy something before they ever talk to a sales professional. And so it used to be, I can make a nice brochure and Godspeed, go wish the sales team good luck out there. But the truth of the matter is 80% of the purchasing process is now on me, right? If I'm doing it well, I'm responsible for 80% of that. So what am I doing to do that? And that's a sea change from where people were 5, 7, 10 years ago. And we as a profession need to think about how are we engaging ourselves in this buying process so that our sales reps, so they can pat themselves on the back and talk about how great they are. We want amazing close rates because that means that the marketing team is doing a good job before that buying process. So anyway, those are my final thoughts. Thanks for letting me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So Mike Sperduti, first of all, thank you for your insights today. Scott Alexander, thank you for yours. For our listening audience, I've got a couple of things. First of all, if you like this episode, please remember to like and subscribe. And then really, most importantly, also tell a friend about the Medtech Business Academy. And with that, we hope to see you next time on the Medtech Business Academy. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.